Hey, we just went out for a row. Beautiful morning, bit of breeze coming up, so we've got a good workout. You can see how Popeye got those arms of his, right? And I just wanted to say a couple things about this, because the name of the boat, of course, is ionnsachaidh, Learning Curve. And I wanted to talk about lessons learned at this point, and as we enter our third season of working with it. What has worked, well, I'm just doing this off the cuff. If you remember, I think in an earlier video I said that initially as I was building this, I wasn't sure about the dimensions of these gunnels. I thought they were too small. They're about 2.5 inches by maybe an inch. And it's because I was working with the material I had. And as I was building this thing, often I would put it to one side because I was thinking I'm wasting materials if I carry on. I'm wasting time if I carry on, because I thought it was kind of a doomed project. And when I finally remade contact with my mentor in Ireland, and I showed him a picture and told him what the numbers were, and I said, "Is this too light? What dimensions do you use?" And he said, "Whatever I can find, man." You know, because these are still kind of the boats of the poor, and they're still resorting to literally beachcombing in some instances. So you go with what you had. So the gunnels have turned out to be a qualified success. The gunnel rub strake that I've put on to guard the edge of the canvas, because it looks a little more elegant and frankly protects it a bit more. I think, because these screws are maybe an inch long, I think that's the maximum that we could use. We've used staples along the edge, and we've used a couple of copper nails as well. That will eventually, because it's on its second skin now, I think that there won't be too many more reskinnings before these gunnels are nail sick, as they say, and we'll have to think of a strategy, either replacing the gunnel strips, the gunnel pieces, or finding a way to restore them. So I'm going to be casting back to my normal wooden boat experience about how to put on graving strips and such like that. We've discovered that so the gunnels have worked fine, because we've been out in some pretty lumpy water. We can't see the gunnels noticeably working as we're rowing for our lives on occasion. We do, however, see a bit of hogging, that the bow and the stern have dropped a bit, and I think that's because we've been moving her to and from the water on a two-wheel cart. And to that end, again, we came up with that cradle of planks which we lash to the cart to distribute the weight of the boat, because it's under 200 pounds. We're gonna have to measure it one day. But then after a season, we also put in this keel set we lashed in, and these seat risers, these posts, to communicate more, so that the gunnels would be taking on more of the load, communicated to the gunnels rather than strictly through the ribs. I think that in future, actually back up a bit, the stringers are attached to the ribs with braided nylon line. Now originally, if we read Tim Severin, he used rawhide. I think before that, or concurrent with that in the ancient times, they would have used braided horsehair, which when soaked with mutton grease or lanolin would be, I think, fairly durable. The lashings have held up wonderfully. I'm surprised. In our third season, they've held up. There's no visible UV degradation. There's nothing is broken in it. I'm quite impressed with that. However, we only went with however many gunnels we see here. Sorry, how many stringers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 or 6 stringers aside. That's not enough. And I'd asked Patty, my mentor, why there's a very broad stringer at the keel or at the bottom. And we see it now. We need that broad stringer, at least 4 inches wide, the width of a palm, because it communicates longitudinal strength. So when we next reskin this boat, next time the skin comes off, we're going to put on new stringers. The ribs I thought were too narrow, but they're holding up. So that's a success. But when the stringers go back on, because we can't get this particular braided nylon anymore, we're going to go with the traditional 9 stringers aside, and with the central wide stringer, and we're going to copper rivet it, because in a later video or later entry in the International College of Curach Builders, I'm going to talk about fastenings, because we've got some proper boat nails, iron boat nails. We're going to compare the 3. I like copper rivets because I know how to do it, and I think they're stronger. They're not traditional, but neither was iron when they introduced it. So yeah, lessons learned. Generally, she's been a success. I did this profile, this particular bow shape, because I was influenced. I was taking as my example the fishing boats that have evolved, the wooden fishing boats that have evolved on this coast for the last 150, 160 years or so. Very broad bow with a hollow forefoot, because local water produces a local hull design. So I went with the bow shape that we see on the old fishing boats, Fraser River gill netters and inland waterways. I think when the time comes to replace this bow, I might go for a more traditionally shaped current bow. I'd also made a hollow forefoot, which has benefit in some boats. I think it's been a good shape, but on the other hand, when we're heading dead into the wind, it slaps, it spanks against the waves, and I have to think that is a bit of wasted effort, wasted energy, and frankly, it's really annoying to listen to. So when we redo it, because you'd see, when you look inside, you can see the original Curachs, carry Curachs, the Navokes, the center stringer went right up to the bow, and then they started using a short extension that came down maybe this far for the stringer to be attached to. Our bow piece, our inner bow, goes all the way down because, frankly, it's a grown piece. It's a grown crook out of a cedar tree, and when I pulled it out of the pile of boat building wood that we had, I just went, oh, this is a perfect shape. I can't bear to shorten it. I think I might want to carry on with that, but in future, the ribs are going to go. We're going to re-rib the bow, but the ribs are going to go outside of this piece, and we're going to have a convex rather than a concave bow. As you can see, we have a mixture of copper rivets and lashings, because by the time we got to here, we'd run out of lashing material, so we had to go to the backup, which is copper. Again, not strictly traditional, but at the same time, probably the most secure and long-lasting fastener, with iron nails being second best, clenched. I'm just really lousy at clenching. I'm going to just admit that right now, and then lashing after that. Another point, we found that these are just sections of dowel, but when we redo these are going to have to be turned so that we have a shoulder for that to rest on, because we can see how the gunnels are coming together there. So there's another experiment that I'm not going to call it a failure. We've just learned that this way doesn't work. So there we go. Still getting an immense amount of enjoyment out of this boat. And if I'm going to show you right now, if you wouldn't mind coming around here, I'm going to show you how we've managed. You can see how we store it. We have it on 2 sawhorses with everything underneath. The mast, the sail, the lee board that we haven't used yet. That'll be subject of a future video. So we got 4 pair of oars there. Now what I've done is I've taken the lanyard from the lee board, and I've fed it through that thole pin. We've also found that the metal thole pins are wonderful. They're tremendous. But the oars occasionally climb off them when they're not being held onto, so that's something we're still working on. So I'm just going to single-handedly bring her over like so. And this means that I can get her on and off single-handedly. Hooray! Now, what ancient Greek mathematician or engineer said, and somebody will tell us, if you give me a place to stand that I can move the world using levers, there's an example of that. So I single-handed it. Yay me, yay us. So there we are. We got off and do some else for the day, but we'll be joining us again for more Curach information and experiences.